on Indianapolis This Week.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
Revving up for the month of May. Can IMS build on its success with the Grand Prix of Indianapolis? And what about the renovations at the track? I take those questions to the Speedway president. The frantic final hours ahead for state lawmakers. Our political insiders set the stage for what we should expect. And the ISTEP glitches in state classrooms. What you need to know as testing reaches full speed.
From RTD6, the Indy channel, this is Indianapolis This Week with Rafael Sanchez.
Thank you for joining us for Indianapolis This Week. We start this week on our new set by talking about one of the greatest traditions in Indianapolis. That tradition, the month of May at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're now just over 1 week from activities starting at the track for Angie's List Grand Prix of Indianapolis. We're also just a year away from the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500. With all of that in mind, I met in a special spot with Indianapolis Motor Speedway President Doug Bowles. It is great to be at the victory podium here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. President Doug Bowles, thank you for joining us today.
Well, thanks for being here. I don't know that we're going to get to host the trophy. I don't think you and I are going to be the two that are out there driving on it.
Can I hold the milk?
That'd be great, except that's the following race, right?
Champagne?
Yeah.
Is it champagne for the...
So they just sort of do whatever they want. We do the little champagne spray. We laughed about, well, should it be chocolate milk? Should we change it?
We can do champagne.
That works. That works.
How key is the Grand Prix now in its second year to the success of the entire month of May?
Well, it's important for us, and the reason we did it last year and the reason we're continuing to do it is we really want to start the month of May off at a high level, and by doing a points-paying race as part of the IndyCar series, that changes the dynamic a little bit. So you bring a lot of national media in that cover the IndyCar series when they're out on the road. They actually come in. In the past, or the last few years until last year, they weren't coming in until right before the Indy 500. So we sort of slept through the month of May in terms of the national media landscape. So that helped. So it helps our TV numbers at the end. It also helps people get excited. So our ticket sales last year were amazing in the month of May. The ticket sales ended up being up for the Indy 500. And we think that's really because we're starting out at a higher level.
Do you think last year people were just curious? I mean, in year two, is it more difficult to get people to come back and beyond the curiosity of what this Grand Prix thing was all about?
It's a great question, and that's one of the things that even internally we don't know. How much of the first year was a curiosity factor? Now, everybody that was here had a great time, and people that weren't sure what it was about, and I run into them all the time and say, oh, wow, it's really cool to watch from the spectator mounds. You move around. It's just sort of this more laid-back feel than the Indy 500 is, and people I talk to say they can't wait to bring others back. What I think people have learned is maybe the best way to see this race is with a GA ticket, not a reserve ticket. And a GA ticket you don't have to buy until the week of. So our ticket sales are about where they were last year. The question will become, are we able to increase that in these last weeks as we lead into the race?
So many renovations. As I drove into the Speedway, new monitors going up, work, the hustle and bustle. What can the fan expect this year as they come to the Speedway?
So I think the biggest thing our fans are going to notice when you get here are the new video boards. We've had video boards here for a long time. They're absolutely nice, and we've gone from standard definition into boards that aren't very bright to high definition and boards that are going to be really bright. So really, I think the fan's going to feel like they're the front seat when they get here. And a lot of the boards have gotten significantly bigger, so it'll be easier for the fans to see them. That'll be the big thing I think they notice. As we lead into next year in 2016, we'll have a lot of projects that will take place between the end of our season when MotoGP ends this year and the green flag of May next year.
That entertainment dollar is shrinking for everybody. So what pressure are you under as an industry, as a speedway, to make this place, take it to the next level? Because everyone is always looking for the zip lines or the swimming pool or whatever it may be, right? Or the next great concert. So how Florida Georgia Line is coming, right? So under how much pressure are you to find that next great thing to keep the crowds coming in?
Well, I think the pressure really is about making sure the fan feels like they're getting the value that they've paid for, and racing is part of that. And we are at our core, we're a racetrack, and that's what will always be our core. But in order to sort of make it feel like it's a better event for folks, we have to add some of those things. So the Florida Georgia Line concert the night before, Carb Day, obviously music is part of that day. So it is more difficult to compete. What we have to do though is first thing we have to make sure the on-track experience is great, and then the fans' experience when they're here here is the experience that they expect when they come to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But some of that is adding new events so that there are other things to do. The Grand Prix of Indianapolis, for example, is different because there's so many activities that take place. So you can watch a little bit of practice. There's the fan village in the infield that you can take advantage of. So we try and make it more than just racing on track.
Doug, this is your dream job, right? You grew up in this place.
Absolutely.
What do you tell someone who's considering whether to come to the Grand Prix or the Indy 500? What's your message this year?
Well, really, the biggest thing is this is an opportunity to celebrate being a Hoosier. It's to celebrate being growing up here in Central Indiana, the pride that we all have in this great state. I mean, this state does wonderful things when people come in and visit. And this is an opportunity twice this year to really put it on a national stage. And what I would encourage people to do is just come out, explore it. We've got that free day on Thursday leading into the Grand Prix of Indianapolis. So I don't even want your money. We don't want your money. Oh, we do eventually. But what we want you to do is come and experience the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That's what that free day is for, to see what you think about racing, see what you think about this cathedral of motorsport. The one thing I tell fans is you hit it on the head. I'm a fan. I love this place, have my whole life. And so I'm looking at everything, everybody here, from Mark Miles on down, we're looking at how do we make the fan experience better. And if the things we do here isn't making the fan experience better, we're not going to do it. So that's really, we want people to come here and go, wow, that's the coolest place I've ever been. They care about me as a fan, and they're making it better for us every year. And I think this year they'll feel that.
I think it's fair enough to say that you can, as you look at the backdrop behind you, you can always say wow when you come to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But now let's you and I go look for that champagne, because next weekend it's off to the races, right? And we're going to have to serve champagne or whatever, right?
Absolutely. We'll figure it out, and we'll get up here and we can maybe steal whatever's left over after.
I'm okay with
Simon Pagenaud, if he wins again, or whoever it is that's standing here in victory lane. Can't wait to see him.
Doug Bowles, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The first big race at the Speedway for the first time will run under the logo of Angie's List. The Indy-based company was very vocal in its opposition to the Religious Freedom Act. Now, this event allows it to put its name in the national spotlight and also celebrate its Indy roots. I sat down with Angie Hicks about the big race just 2 weeks away. So why the collaboration with IMS?
We were excited to be able to sponsor the Grand Prix of Indianapolis because it's a great way for us to combine an activity for our service companies with a great race. And it's Indianapolis, it's May, it's a flagship event. So it was a great opportunity for us to create an event that would be exciting for people across the country to come to.
And for you, what does that oval represent? Because that is one big place, and as you've seen, a massive humanity gathers there, whether it's for the Grand Prix, for the Angie's List Grand Prix, or for the 99th 100th of the Indianapolis 500. Thousands of people just gather. So for you, what does that mean? I mean,
it is just, you know, a racetrack built around history. I mean, I remember growing up in Fort Wayne listening on the radio to the Indy 500 because they didn't televise it in Indiana back in the day with my dad. You know, it's like I grew up, we'd go to the little racetrack in Fort Wayne, and so for me, I've always loved racing. So it's a great marriage of concepts here, and I think it's a great thing for the service providers and a great thing for us to be able to celebrate a local Indianapolis iconic event.
Now for us, Tony Kanaan is our favorite driver because he's the RTV6 analyst for the month. Do you have a favorite driver or a favorite experience with a driver out on the oval?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of years ago, I had what I realized was probably the moment where maybe I like racing, but being the passenger in the race car might put me over the edge. So Johnny Rutherford took me for a ride in the pace car around the track, and I had like second thoughts as I was getting in the car. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know. And I got in, and I was like telling him the whole time, I was like, you can't drive more than this fast. And of course, I found out later he didn't abide by my rules. But yeah, like riding around the track with an actual race car driver is an amazing opportunity.
Now you know I'm an investigative reporter, and sources tell me that you drive fast. Now I know that you don't want Metro Police or State Police to know that, right? But my understanding is
I've turned over a new leaf. I am a rule follower.
And you do follow the rules, but my understanding is you like speed. I mean,
I do love racing. I think it's fun, you know. But yeah, when I'm on the streets, I follow the rules. You follow the rules. You will also be bringing some of your providers in for that week. And what does that mean to be able to bring some of the folks that are part of the Angie's List family? I think it's a great way to celebrate all the great work they provide to consumers across the country. So we'll be bringing in service companies from across the country that are highly rated, and a chance to celebrate that, as well as, you know, we're going to have a conference along with it to talk about how they can improve improve their business. So just a real collaboration, and and the service providers are really excited. I mean, they don't go to a lot of conferences, so it's a great opportunity for them to network with providers from across the country. So they don't have to talk to the heating and cooling company in their town. They can talk to the heating and cooling company 2 states over and really, get some valuable insight.
And ultimately, this is a big economic development issue in the sense that, I mean, we're a growing city. People want to live here. We've seen our downtown grow. We've seen your company grow.
Yeah, and it's and I think like what better time to visit Indianapolis than in May? I mean, it is just it's beautiful for the weather. The race is fun. It's just it's a first-class month all around.
If you could, would you suit up? Would you be a driver? Would you want to run in maybe the 100th?
Maybe when I was younger, I might have. Maybe I'm just getting a little too conservative the older I get.
Helmet? Come on. The suit?
I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, Angie Hicks.
Right.
You could have car 33. You could set the pole, no?
Yeah. I don't know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we look forward to attending the Angie's List Grand Prix in Indianapolis. Have a great time.
Thank you.
Can we have good weather? Can you help us out with that?
I hope so. Fingers crossed.
You heard it here first. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you. So take note, RTV6 is the only place to see both races this May. Though I wanted to begin next weekend, no, the Angie's List Grand Prix of Indianapolis will be live on Saturday, May the 9th. Indy 500 qualifying will be live on Saturday, May the 16th, with the live pole day coverage on the 17th. Then it's the 99th running of the Indianapolis 500 on Sunday, May the 24th, right here on RTV6. Indianapolis this week as we welcome in our political insiders, Republican Jennifer Hollowell, Democrat Adam Kirsch, and of course, longtime political reporter Mary Beth Schneider with the Indianapolis Star. Let's start with, of course, the budget and the State House. We are so close. Give us your insight. The last remaining hours, how much really gets done in the stretch?
Almost everything gets done in this stretch. If it isn't already passed and you're in a conference committee, they like to play it out to the end because everybody is hoping to make that one little change that satisfies their side. And what's unusual is the Republicans have supermajorities, they control everything, and yet they will still be bickering down to the wire. Nobody's getting out of there early.
Did you call it a death watch?
They call it a death watch. Yeah, the lobbyists call it a death watch. They keep books of these things and striking off bills they know are dead and what's still alive and what might get inserted into something else. It's actually great fun, but not for the faint of heart.
Jennifer, we are looking at a revenue shortfall, about $200 million. What will have to be cut from this budget in the year of education?
Well,
do you think?
I think, as we all know, it would be very dangerous to predict things at this point because it's going to change a lot. Certainly education is a big topic, and changing the funding formula and shifting more to some of the suburban schools that are growing and have more students is a big part of the discussion. But to predict where these changes and exactly what the numbers are going to be, I would not do that.
But Adam, there will be winners and losers. I mean, there will have to be some sort of somewhere's going to lose.
Yes, and we've
to some extent, right?
Indianapolis Public Schools is going to lose out in this budget. How much we don't know, and we won't know until the legislature adjourns.
But of all the things in the budget, education does seem like the least likely to take an overall hit now. I think David Long said not to say that anything is safe, but that was the safest of all the things on the table.
And it is a huge part of the budget. I mean, it's a big chunk of that number.
Half, right?
Yeah.
I guess I hate to ask this question. What will this legislature be most remembered for?
Oh.
Achievement-wise, besides the entire debate over the Religious Freedom Act, what will we remember this legislature for? Will that be it, or was there a grand program or a grand thing?
That is the biggest thing it will be remembered for,
yes.
I can't think of a big ticket, eye-popping item that would ever displace that when you look back at sessions.
Well, and what's sad is they're missing an opportunity to replace that with an achievement. We could have put civil rights protections for LGBT Hoosiers in the law today, in the legislature, and Republicans refuse to hear it.
What will this legislature be? Anything besides?
I mean, I can't argue. I think we know what it will be remembered for because that is what dominated the headlines for weeks and may continue to. But I do think in the next few days we will see some positive things come out of this, and education and funding and other areas.
And it's amazing, this is the year that they actually passed the common construction wage change, and that's just a footnote. That would have been the biggest thing in previous years.
Yeah, and that will lead to cost savings for public construction, school buildings, things like that across the state, which will have a long-term impact.
And decreased wages and sending jobs out of state.
And the debate continues on that. The Attorney General will not pursue the same-sex marriage issue. Is that a sign that that issue is changing a lot of thought in the state? What does that mean when the Attorney General says, I'm not going to mess with that lawsuit?
Well, I think that's go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think that the Attorney General made the right call on this. And he defended the state law all the way, all the way to the court in Chicago just last year, right? But as we know, I mean, the tide is turning. Opinions are changing. They have been for years, progressively at a much faster rate. And I think that we all expect that this summer or later this year, the Supreme Court is going to make a decision that decides this once and for all and for everyone. And from the Attorney General's perspective, he did his duty defending the state law. That came to a close, and this battle can continue on without us.
Adam, do you think he saw what we saw with the religious freedom debate and he said, I don't want to mess with that dead rail?
I think he saw that he lost on his argument several times at various courts and doesn't want to pursue it again.
And that the state, I think, is exhausted from the social fights, and it's time to take a break and focus these last days on things like education and not on Supreme Court fights that we probably wouldn't be on the winning side of anyway.
So what I'm hearing is that the legislature will get out on time then, right?
Yes.
Not early, but on time.
We'll get out on time. And hey, we'll welcome you to the new home. Do you like the new
It's
desk?
wonderful.
I was afraid to say the round table because now it's a square table. It's a rectangular table, but you all look fantastic. And we want to welcome you back. And please, our insiders are in the house. The conversation will always continue. On Twitter, follow Mary Beth, Adam, Jennifer, Abdul, and Laura, and tell them what you think. They want to hear from you. Use the hashtag Indy This Week. Check out their Twitter handles and give us your opinion and stay up to date with them throughout the week. As we talk education, starting with ISTEP, the State Department of Education says reports of glitches in ISTEP testing over the past week, they say, are overstated. The Department of Education says nearly 200,000 subtests have been completed Thursday. Now, of those tests, the state reports disruptions for less than 1% of them. Several districts have reported issues, including Franklin, Kokomo, and Columbus, and have been given permission to give the ISTEP using a pencil and paper instead of online. Let's bring in now Scott Elliott from our partners at Chalkbeat, Indiana, who cover education issues. Scott, the problem with this ISTEP test has to be a major concern for school districts when it's such a high-stakes test.
It's very frustrating because, as you know, this certainly isn't the first time. I think this is the fourth time in the last 6 years that there's been at least some amount of disruption with the online test. This one seems pretty small, so it doesn't seem especially widespread, and so far they're saying it's not.
And the problem with that is we say small, but for those school districts, right?
It's not small if it's
teacher
your
accountability, school grades, it is 1%, but for those schools, it's big.
And educators are very frustrated when it happens. So they're hoping that they'll be able to repair this problem and move on quickly.
There was talk in the State House of scrapping the test altogether, but that seems to have stalled in the session.
They're not going to get rid of ISTEP. They're going to study the idea of using a different test in the future. One thing they did that the state is moving toward, though, is changing the company that manages the online ISTEP, so that we'll have a different company doing this in the future, it looks like, so maybe that'll make a difference.
Tell me about the exciting series that you're doing on English learners.
Thank you. Yeah, Chalkbeat has been in partnership with the Indianapolis Star and WFYI Public Media, produced a series of stories this week about the very huge growth in English language learners in Indianapolis. Over 15 years, the number of children learning English in our city has almost tripled, and some schools have struggled with this large influx.
And of course, folks often think it's just Spanish, but we're talking about languages from around the world.
That's right. I visited a classroom in Indianapolis for the series where there were 6 children in the room, and they were from 6 different countries on 3 continents. Burmese is a particularly large group of new refugees who have moved to Indianapolis in recent years, but really it's very widespread. And
the difficulties, from what I hear from educators, is that these young people, they want to be in the country, but they also have to take the ISTEP
Yes.
in the English language.
That's right, and state
that's difficult
law.
for schools, right? Because they get counted against having children that have limited English skills.
That's exactly right. Schools are very concerned about the rules around testing. So we actually have an example in the series of a child who, it was their first week in the country. They did not speak any English, and they were required to take the ISTEP math test. You know, the theory, I think, is that math is more universal, but of course those tests are written in English.
Sure.
It's hard to even know what to do. So I think there may need to be a little bit of rethinking about some of the testing policies. Funding is another issue.
Sure.
I think there's going to be some
If I want to
change.
access the series, how do I get a hold of it? How do I read it?
Yes, if you go to in.chalkbeat.org, the whole series, right at the top, you can click and access the entire series. The series is called Lost in Translation.
Scott Elliott, thank you so much.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Indianapolis